fellow Zambian citizens, compatriots, and the Zambian proletariat. In this second address, I'll be sharing with you our most cherished ideals, beliefs, concepts, and principles of life that should leave you with a vivid picture of who we are as a political party or movement, what we stand for, and what our vision is like, and how that vision will transform our nation and the Zambian people as a whole. The address will be in two parts. The first will cover or zero in on the concept of man and labor, while the second will cover the economic regime, the environment, and the responsibility of the state. It is absolutely important to take note that these principles constitute the main ideological path for the Progressive Labour Congress PLC, also known as the Progressives, and will form the basis of all party policies and programs when in government come 2026. Article 1, the definition and nature and mission of our party. The Progressive Labour Congress PLC, the Progressives, is a revolutionary political force that will devote its actions and programs when in government to initiate, build, promote, guarantee, and safeguard the material, moral, and spiritual well-being of all Zambians, in particular the workers both in the formal and informal sectors, the pensioners, the retrenchees, the women, the students and youths, and all the marginalized groups allied under the Zambian proletariat. The Progressive Labour Congress PLC, the Progressives, are convinced that the adoption and application of principles set out in our Declaration of Principles will bring about in Zambia the conditions necessary for the complete liberation of man and a radical transformation of our society. Consequently, the labor movement as the proletariat must be the revolutionary force working in alliance with other progressive strata to transform the concept and structure of our society. The Progressive Labour Congress, PLC, the Progressives, are resolved to vigorously pursue in a very open and democratic manner the establishment of a national state in Zambia that will champion, promote, defend, and guarantee the common ideals set forth in these articles of declaration. The Progressive Labour Congress, PLC, the Progressives, remain deeply attached to the teachings of our founding father of the nation, Kenneth David Kaunda, and are convinced of the fundamental importance and the need for full development of man and his attendant values, of which the party unequivocally recognize and defend as an inheritance. Article 2, the spiritual concept of man. Man's fulfillment, as well as the development of nations, be it in the social, economic, political, technical, and cultural sphere, has a spiritual and material basis or content. This view holds dearly that man and the universe were created by God Almighty. Man is a social being, one who has the power and the duty, first, to live and lead his own life. Secondly, to build and perfect the lives of others in a world of interdependence. Man, therefore, does not exist for himself or good alone. He has the power and duty to build and perfect the world. This demands that each and every man must cooperate with all other men and contribute to the building of a society in which each and all men will be able to seek and attain their personal development in complete freedom, dignity, and justice, and being aware of their full responsibility towards each other and society as a whole. One in all and all in one is our moral compass as a party. Article 3. The rights of a person. Every man is entitled to the respect for his life and to the living conditions that correspond and guarantee him the possibility of full employment, full development as a person. This implies the right to sufficient food, decent housing, and access to services that guarantee him the best condition of health, education, and a standard of living which will not be allowed to fall in time of illness, old age, disablement, and state of unemployment. Every man has the right to found a family, and since the family is the basic unit for society, it follows that society has the duty of ensuring that its structure enables families to grow and prosper. Society, therefore, should avail families with equal opportunities in the education and advancement of family members. Every man has the right to freedom of conscience, to hold and express opinions, and to develop his own personality in diverse national groups and communities. He has the right to form and belong to associations of his own choosing, those that enable him to satisfy his various needs in life and society in general. And in exercising these rights, every man has the right to information and education, because these attributes enable him to uncover the truth. Education, therefore, which recognizes and respects the personality of the individual, particularly in his spiritual, moral, cultural, and social aspects, must be assured and guaranteed by the national state, whose duty it is to assist families as society as a whole by providing the best possible conditions for educating its citizens. Article 4. The worker is a person. Each worker is a human individual, that is to say, a human being, who is both free and responsible, whose dignity is expressed in basic, indivisible rights, which must be respected by all, including the state and society. And by the term worker is meant all those persons who live by their own labor and do not exploit the labor of others. Men are born equal in dignity and rights. All acts of discrimination, privileges, assertions of superiority based on class, race, caste, background, social origin, wealth, sex, nationality, culture, or religion are contrary to human nature and therefore constitute the main obstacle to the establishment of a humane community which is free in dignity and justice. These social evils must be fought and are rejected, including all their offshoots. Article 5, work. Man has a fundamental right to work, which he must be able to exercise freely. Work is the primary expression of man's personality, and by putting his mark on nature, man fulfills a noble task of contributing towards the building of a community of mankind. Work constitutes an essential means for the development of a human person, offering man the possibility of providing for his material needs and those of his family, thereby making him attain a standard of living which is in accordance with the possibilities of civilization. For this purpose, the working man, and indeed every man, has the right to own such goods as are necessary for his existence, as well as the right to benefit from leisure and culture. The worth of human labor is far greater and valuable than all other means of production. Capital, science, and technology are only instruments employed by men in their endeavor. The economic regime should therefore be organized in such a way so as to enable every man to receive and acquire adequate vocational training, which is necessary for him to perform work that corresponds to his training, aptitudes, and preferences. Article 6, Working Conditions. The Progressive Labour Congress PLC, the Progressives, rejects any economic system which tends to use man as a tool. The fact is that man is the essential element of production, being at one and the same time the originator of it and the purpose for which it exists. Every man, therefore, has the right to work under conditions that enable him to achieve the normal development of his personality. Consequently, any work system tolerating forced labor is to be rejected. Where the conditions of production do not allow for the normal development of the worker's personality, industrial and labor law reforms should be instituted to transform the existing organization of employment, methods of production, and the economic structures. Transformation can be achieved by encouraging the workers to be aware of the possible conditions necessary for their emancipation and participation in industry, and by advocating for an economic regime organized in such a way that the dignity of the workers and the independence of their organizations are fully respected. Article 7, the enterprise. The enterprise must be an association of persons collaborating in their work to produce goods and services. As the basic unit of the economic structure, the enterprise should essentially subordinate its production process to satisfying the popular human needs of all the people, making the most optimum use of resources within the framework of popular plans drawn with their involvement through democratic means. Since the enterprise is an association of persons, it must allow for the full participation of all its members, allowing them to exercise responsibility at all levels of the organization. Workers' participation in the management of such enterprises should be viewed as an extension of workers' rights and emancipation. Article 8, the role of trade unions. Public authorities should guarantee workers' rights by making the widest provision within the legal framework for workers' representation of their professional and economic interests. Workers' organizations, in particular trade unions, should have the right and the means to take an active and effective part in determining the means and the process of carrying out and supervising the economic and social policy and the overall development of their country. Article 9, Trade Union Freedom. Trade union freedom is an indefeasible right of the workers. They are therefore entitled to associate themselves freely in organizations of their own choosing for the purposes of studying, promoting, defending, and representing their interests. They are free to take part in accordance with their established methods agreed with them in determining the process for attaining an efficient and democratic organization of social and economic life in a country. Trade unionism must be the expression of the workers' right to self-determination, especially with regards to the nature, functioning, and methods of action. Constraints such as compulsory affiliation should be wholly rejected. The Progressive Labour Congress PLC, the Progressives, will respect the right of the workers to associate and negotiate for improved work conditions in accordance with International Labour Organization conventions, standards, recommendations, in particular, the most cherished conventions numbered 87 and 98, which guarantee workers freedom of association and the protection of the right to organize. Fellow citizens, compatriots, and members of the Zambian proletariat, as I conclude my address for the first part of the Declaration of Principles, I want to pose the question, what does human dignity, so much talked about in these principles, depend upon? What makes man happy? I will attempt to answer these things briefly. The Progressive Labour Congress, the Progressives, submits, and first of all, it depends on the elimination of social conditions that enslave man. Indeed, a person cannot be happy if he is denied the opportunity to develop his creative abilities. And such opportunities are directly related to the nature of the social structure. So, to make a person happy, it is necessary to remove obstacles hampering the development of his abilities. But these abilities are unfolded in his activity. And since this activity inevitably entails social consequences, the flourishing of the individual and his happiness are inseparably linked with social activity. A person lives a full and satisfying life only when his work is needed by other people, by society. Of course, fellow citizens, happiness cannot be complete if a person has family problems, if he has no friends, if his everyday living conditions are wretched and are a perpetual nightmare. Concern for personal well-being is quite natural and it should not be discarded. But personal happiness too depends to a great and decisive extent on the possibilities offered by society and, I repeat, the state in particular is responsible for achieving this. If a person is only concerned with his own well-being and disregards the good of society, or worse still, seeks to prosper at the expense of society, and this is current state of affairs in Zambia, his life will not only become shallow, empty, useless, but the goal itself, personal happiness, will not be attained. In such a case, a person becomes a slave to things. Many Zambians are being subjected to this state of affairs because of the capitalist socio-economic system being idolized and glorified by current and previous governments. The Progressive Labour Congress PLC, the Progressives, places a very high premium on the importance of man and the responsibility of the state to provide for its citizens with an economic regime that contributes to the establishment of a more just and more humane society. That will be the only true measure and expression of equality and solidarity between all men and bona fide citizens. In the second part of our discussion, we will be zeroing in on these ideals as part of our overall popular election platform in the 2026 general elections. Long live Zambia, long live the workers, long live the Zambian proletarian revolution. Thank you. God bless Zambia.